Dragon Dreams. I'm Ivan, and my channel is about indie, old school, and unconventional role-playing games.
Alright, so in today's video, I'm going to talk about religions in the Mystara setting. So the Mystara setting was a setting written back in the 80s for the BECMI edition of Dungeons & Dragons. And what's interesting about it is that they have immortals instead of gods. So an immortal is somebody who once lived but does not currently. That kind of changes things because it means that religion is more setting specific. It's what country you're in, what area you're in, who your ethnic people are. So I'm going to go through several religions in the Grand Duchy of Keramikis, which is the starting zone. And the first one is the Church of Traldar. So the original people who lived in the Grand Duchy of Keramikis are the Traldarans. And so before it was anything else, it was the land of the Traldarans. Then it got conquered by the Thracian Empire. And then it got bought by this guy, Stefan Keramikis III, who sold his estate to the Thracian Emperor to gain the province as its own independent state. That's the setting. So the Church of Traldar is the Church of the Traldarans. And their belief system is, first of all, don't do any of the normal things that harm people. Don't murder, steal, lie, assault. And they believe that you have to atone for your sins very harshly. So if you sin, then maybe you have to be flogged or something like that. So there's obviously a very harsh people in a certain way. But at the same time, they don't have really sexual mores. So there's no, don't commit adultery or don't have sex before marriage. It's not that those things are wrong in the eyes of the Traldaran Church. It's just that they stay out of it. Those aren't sins. Also, the Traldaran people are a superstitious lot, and the Traldaran Church has nothing particularly against superstition. It doesn't do anything to try to stop it. Finally, the Traldaran Church believes that this hero, Halav, will someday be reincarnated. So their immortals are the Traldaran heroes, Halav, Zirchev, and Petra. And Halav is this epic hero who died in this huge duel, and someday they'll have a new golden age, and he will return. The Church of Keramikis is basically an offshoot of the Thracian Church. So it's they worship the first emperor of the Thracian Empire, and they believe in all the same don't hurt people kind of sins as the Traldarans, but they also add on some sexual mores: no sex before marriage, and adultery is wrong. But they are a lot less harsh on sin. They don't think that people have to atone for their sins in the same way. They don't think they have to be punished. They think that what they have to do is do something spiritual. So they might make them chant a rosary. They might, for a minor one, for a major one, they might make them go on a pilgrimage or do charity work. And they are anti-superstition. So, the Traldarans may have lots of superstitions. They're actively trying to stop people from having those superstitions. Now, both of these are mainstream churches. If you're a Traldaran, you probably go to the Traldaran Church. If you're a Thracian, you probably go to the Keramikis Church. There's one other religion, and that is the cult of Halav. Now, these guys believe that Stefan Keramikis, the Duke, is the reincarnation of Halav. Okay, that is cool. because cults don't make sense and they have this completely nonsensical belief system. But hey, you need something for the chaos. All right. So what I find really interesting about these religions is that you'll notice that what distinguishes them are their belief systems and their values. They're not really distinguished in terms of what sorts of powers are granted to their clerics. All the clerics are the same. They are differentiated in terms of values. Now, what I find really interesting about this is in a role-playing game, you have the foreground and you have the background. Now, the foreground is the adventure. The background is the setting. And what's interesting to me is that the background's important because if a role-playing game is a simulation, then we want to be immersed in it. We want to know why our characters are going on the adventure, and the background will tell us that. And we also want to know what our characters' values are and how they've been influenced by their culture and things like that, how they fit into society. And so it's an interesting move that in Mystara, the powers of clerics don't change very much, but their values change a great deal. And consider that in terms of, say, for example, lying in an adventure. Or I would probably rule that Chalderan priests can marry because they don't seem to have anything particular against sex. So you can kind of imagine the different value systems that clerics of those two main churches would have. And then, of course, the oddball one, the cult. Now, the other thing that's interesting to me is that when you have religions that have values, these become things that I would want to be involved with for my player character, even if they were not a cleric, because I want to play a character that, let's say they're Chalderan, they'd probably be in the Chalderan church, right? And they probably have Chalderan values, and that church would probably be an important part of their cultural identity. Similarly, if I was a Thaetian, I'd probably be in the Church of Keramikis because that would represent my values. And those values anchor us. They guide us in why we're adventuring, how we behave ourselves, and when we don't behave ourselves and why. At what point are we willing to sin, and at what point do we feel bad about it? At what point don't we do it? So I guess the best of both worlds would be one in which clerics have both different powers that they get from their religion and different value systems. But I really like the Mystara way. If I had a choice between changing values versus changing powers, I'd actually choose changing values because that means that religion is this background thing that hooks you in. It gives you a sense of purpose. So let me know what you think. Which is more important? What do you think is important in religion in a fantasy world for a fantasy role-playing game? Values or powers given to clerics? Let me know in the comments. And I would just like to say that I think that being anchored to the background is one of the reasons why BECMI is one of my favorite versions of D&D.
I hope you found this video informative. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing and share it with your friends. And please support me on Patreon. And until next time, keep dreaming, everybody.